Hello, and thank you for tuning into Tackle Talk Tuesday, the one and only Fishing with Dom podcast. I am Dom, and today I have a topic I'd like to talk about within the realm of fishing, and it is something, once again, that is near and dear to my heart. It's about a local body of water that I have fished countless times growing up. It is about Lake St. Clair and how excellent it is and how truly unique the fishery and the waterway is. Now, no matter where you are, where you fished, where you've been, or where you've lived, no two bodies of water are the same. And I've fished Lake Okeechobee, I've fished the ocean, I've fished different southern lakes, Great Lakes, rivers throughout the Midwest region, and I have yet to discover anything close to Lake St. Clair. I don't think it's physically possible. Now, if you haven't seen Lake St. Clair, or you might have fished Lake St. Clair, I keep calling it unique, and I wish there was a better word to refer to it as, but there isn't anything like it on planet Earth. First off, if you are a bass fisherman, a walleye fisherman, a muskie fisherman, or a big-time ice fisherman, Lake St. Clair is one of the greatest places on the entire planet to target just about anything. A lot of locals, a lot of guys in the bait shops will say if you want to catch a world record fish, Lake St. Clair definitely is holding several. And I definitely believe it. There is over 430 square miles of water. A lot of room for different fish, not a small lake by any means. A lot of big fish come out of there. A lot of giant muskies, a lot of giant smallmouth, and a lot of big walleyes too. But as far as Lake St. Clair goes, Bassmaster Elite Series angler Skeet Reese put it like this several years ago, and I have to agree with him on this. Lake St. Clair is a giant bowl of sand with extremely clear water. And he's absolutely right. The average depth is about 11 feet throughout the entire lake. The deepest natural point of the lake reaches about 21 foot in depth, but the deepest point in the lake hits about that 27-30 marker or so. Because it is an international waterway, there's a very heavy presence of freighters that come up and down the shipping channel between southeastern Michigan and Canada, whether they're going up into Canada or deep up into Lake Superior. There's a lot of very, very large commercial boat traffic, thus why the United States Army Corps of Engineers dredges out the shipping channel, which is the deepest part of the lake. A lot of big fish could be caught out there, but then again, a lot of fish could be caught just about anywhere on Lake St. Clair. I've caught big smallmouth in 3 foot of water, and I've caught big smallmouth jigging out in 30 feet of water. It's not a very hard body of water to fish, but if you're looking for quality of fish, you might have to spend some time to pattern them. The final Bassmaster Elite Series event regular season event of 2017 is taking place on Lake St. Clair in 2 days. I'll be down there. I'll be recording, getting some photos. It's going to be a great time. But the guys are down there right now patterning with this wind we got going on, where they are going to connect with not just any smallmouth bass, the largest of the smallmouth bass. And the biggest X factor when it comes to fishing a tournament, let alone fishing this lake that could almost be a Great Lake itself, is the wind. The waves out there can get 6 foot tall. I've seen it happen before, and it gets kind of nasty. But Lake St. Clair is relatively easy to fish for bass. More or less, it's a big bowl of sand. You kind of just got to drift around and cast, and you end up catching fish. There's very, very little contour, very little structure out there. And I've mostly caught smallmouth bass on Lake St. Clair. I'd say out of a couple of hundred smallies I've caught out there personally, I might have caught a handful of largemouth. Not too many largemouth get pulled out of there, but it doesn't matter. Pardon me there. It doesn't matter what you're throwing. Crankbaits, soft baits, top waters, spinner baits, anything will catch smallmouth bass out there. But aside from bass fishing, panfish opportunities on Lake St. Clair are absolutely endless. There's a very strong crappie, perch, and bluegill population. And outside of the main spiny bait fish like those, what feeds the predator chain on Lake St. Clair is the presence of prey fish. you not only have those three types of panfish, you have whiting, different shad, moon eye, striped bass, shiners by the tens of thousands, several alewives. There are absolutely everything and anything for large predator fish to eat in Lake St. Clair. That's why I personally think a lot of the muskies are getting ginormous out of Lake St. Clair. They're eating, larger bass, and they're feeding on the overabundance of silver bass on Lake St. Clair. There are so many different opportunities out there to fish. It's truly an amazing body of water. You can go out there in May and catch silver bass by the hundreds. You can go out in January and really knock the perch. Or if you're a multi-species guy like me, you can just go out there and cast anything and catch possibly anything. Sturgeon have been caught in the north end. There's a lot of big pike. I keep saying walleye. It's a very, very good walleye body of water. I like to personally jig it and bottom bounce vertically a crawler harness. I'll catch a lot of walleyes on the north end doing that, but down by the mile roads, there's excellent spearfishing opportunities if you're into the whole underwater harpoon gun style of fishing for carp and bowfin and other rough fish. But even as far as rough fish goes on St. Clair, now that I think about it, there's a lot of gar, there's a lot of giant carp out there, there's a lot of grass carp too, some big bowfin, and sheephead, big sheephead. I've caught several, and what has been growing in popularity, well, I'm not sure if, I take that back, I'm not sure if it's exactly popularity, but the catch rates for catching large channel catfish have improved drastically over the past 15 years. A lot of the muskie guides on the lake are trolling larger bucktails, larger medusas and crankbaits, and catching these 15-pound channel cats. And I think that's pretty cool, but it really goes to show how diverse and how unique the Lake St. Clair fishery is. Now, a little bit more into the geography of the river. It's about 8 miles northeast of Detroit. Now, right not too far from Windsor, there's one major river connecting into, or dumping into Lake St. Clair, and that is the St. Clair River. And that branches off of the south end of Lake Huron, and that flows a tremendous amount of water into the lake. Where the St. Clair River starts in Port Huron to where it ends 40 miles downstream in Algonac towards the lake, there's a 5-foot height difference. And just to let you know how large the St. Clair River actually is, some of the mid-channel depths are about 70 foot or so. So constantly there's a huge blast of cold, fresh water entering the lake. And then 20 miles across the lake, you have the Detroit River flowing down and into Lake Erie. So when it comes to Lake St. Clair, you're always getting new fish. They say within the shipping channel, the residence time is about 2 days, depending on the wind, for the water to flow from Algonac to one end in the current where the shipping channel is, down towards Grosse Pointe or Detroit, where the Detroit River actually starts. It's very, very incredible. I think that's part of the reason what keeps the water clear. It's very, very different. You have to see it for yourself if you've never been to Lake St. Clair. Now, as far as the lake itself, as I've mentioned earlier, it's very shallow. Well, it's relatively shallow. I'm not going to say very shallow. It's relatively shallow. It's very clear. The average residence of water spent in the lake is about 7 days. Now, that is referred to as Tarry Time. Now, that's a term that I really haven't heard all too much before, but it has been shown that when the water comes into Lake St. Clair, it can be entirely new water in as little as 5 or 7 days, or depending on the wind and conditions, it could take as many as 20 to 30 days, as I'm reading this right now off of the Army Corps of Engineers websites. But it's a part of the Great Lakes system, and they don't get too many cold water fish such as salmon and trout and steelhead. But every so often somebody does catch a salmon or trout out there, but it's not a place you'd go to if you wanted to troll downriggers or lead core for salmon, just because it doesn't hold the depths that those fish can be staging in all too well. They have been caught out there, but it's not the ideal location for it. But if you have a boat out there and you want to try getting into fishing a little bit, maybe take a kid out and just throw on an original Rapala, drift a worm, a jig and twister tail, and you'll catch fish doing that. It's not a hard body of water to fish, but when it comes to catching larger fish, you definitely got to put in your time. Now, all the way from ice out, sometime around February, to the time the ice locks in around Christmas, those fish get hit really, really hard. There are a lot of diehards out there that smallmouth bass fish probably 9 months out of the year out there. A lot of muskie guides, they're out there every single day between June and early December, just casting and throwing everything they can at potentially a 50-pound muskie. And it proves off. It's been rated one of the best muskie fishing locations in the world. It's a fantastic walleye fishery. Bassmaster has listed it as one of the best. Every single year it's been one of the best bass fishing lakes in the country, and a couple years ago was the bass fishing lake in the country. You couldn't beat it, and I've seen it at its best. I've seen it in slumps, but the thing with Lake St. Clair, it's here to stay. It's a promising fishery. The state of Michigan and province of Ontario put a lot of time and effort and infrastructure additions into providing an excellent fishing and outdoor opportunity on Lake St. Clair, to where it's not going to burn up anytime soon. It's an awesome habitat. There's a lot of great bait fish. There's a lot of sport fishing opportunities, and because it's so clear and so close to the Metro Detroit and Windsor areas, it's an awesome place to vacation. I enjoy being around the lake, even if I don't have a fishing pole in my hand. I still love going out there. Now, because it's a connecting waterway between two of the Great Lakes. If you want to ice fish out there, you really have to know what you're doing. A lot of gentlemen around the Algonac, New Haven, generally the north corner of Lake St. Clair towards Anchor Bay on the American side, they'll park along the shoreline, find a parking lot, and walk a mile or two out onto the ice, just because the ice in the wintertime on Lake St. Clair is very, very unpredictable. With the large amount of fast-flowing water coming in through Algonac and different temperature changes and the shipping channel, the ice out there could be 8 inches in some spots, and then it could taper down to 2 inches very, very quick, just because the water is moving around tremendously compared to Toledo Bend, Okeechobee, Oneida, Lake Champlain. My advice is, if you are going to go out and ice fish Lake St. Clair, definitely know what you're doing. Now, I'm not telling you not to do it, because I've seen incredible perch come out of there. I've seen a lot of nice pike get speared out of Lake St. Clair. Just make sure, as always, be extra careful when it comes to ice fishing Lake St. Clair. But if you're out on a boat, it's my favorite places. It's in my top 3 favorite places to fish, and I only live about an hour away from my favorite launch. But it's going to be an awesome time down there for the Bassmaster Elite Series event. Going to see a whole bunch of local guys, Chad Pipkins and Kevin Van Dam, 2 Michiganders. Oh, can't forget John Van Dam. We're going to have an excellent time. It should be a good tournament. The bass fishing is really good right now. A lot of anglers are predicting, to be in the 20-pound marker a day. If you can bring in 20 pounds of fish every single day, you're going to be a contestant for the big seat on come Championship Sunday. But we'll see how that plays out. But this podcast isn't about the event coming up. I'll release several of those within the next couple of days. What's really amazing about Lake St. Clair is the water quality, how well the state of Michigan and province of Ontario take care of this lake, and the fishing. Just year after year, it's always very, very impressive. There are a couple of smaller rivers that come off of Lake St. Clair. There's the Clinton River that comes up through Mount Clemens, and into Rochester Hills and Pontiac, and then there's the Thames River. Both get very nice panfish and pike, and quite a decent amount of bass. But no matter what the time of year is, if you want to go out and fish Lake St. Clair, it's an awesome, awesome fishery. I'm going to be going out there in October, November, trolling for a big pike or muskie, but I might drift around, catch some bass too. That'd be a lot of fun. There's no wrong way to fish it. For bass, drop shots are very popular. For walleye guys, throwing a lot of jigs and twister tails and minnow baits work very, very well. A lot of walleye guys who troll don't like to pull body baits just because there are so many toothy critters out there, like pike and muskie, that'll take your lure potentially, and that gets expensive and kind of annoying very, very quick. So jigs and crawler harnesses are very popular out there for walleye anglers. The muskie guys, they'll throw everything and anything they have. There's no wrong way to fish Lake St. Clair. Even if whether you're a touring professional, whether you're an outdoor writer like I am, or if you're just a kid standing on the shoreline casting a worm out there, everybody has an equal opportunity to catch one of the largest fish of their lifetime. Now, all this talk about Lake St. Clair has me itching to go. I can't wait to get down there with my buddy Lucas in a couple weeks and really catch some fish. We're going to do just about everything we can. But thank you for listening to this week's Tackle Talk Tuesday podcast. I really appreciate it. If you have any suggestions or ideas for future podcasts, please let me know. I would really appreciate it in the comments section. And thank you for listening to Fishing with Dom. You be sure to have a great week. Thank you. Bye-bye.